Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
Gosh, I feel like a loser for that one.
Explain yourself.
I don't know. That was kind of strange. I should have gone with the longer one.
You said you wanted a short one. That was the shortest intro music that I had to kind of get it going.
Yeah. Oh, well. That was good.
Asking you will receive, my friend. I'm here to please.
I'm very complaining tonight. I'm complaining a lot tonight. I'll start with some positive vibes.
Well, I mean, I feel
that's right, Fred. Yeah, I didn't see that.
Oh, there you go. With the hat and everything, too. Blake, you want to give us a sound check? I saw you chopped off there.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's perfect as always. So,
hey,
pretty good.
At least hear you. We'll take it. We'll take it. We got that. We got Fred's
locked in.
Probably jerry rigged mic stand over there.
Duct tape this time.
But you know, I actually now have a deck of Jack Daniel's playing cards to help hoist it up another couple inches. So,
way to
Do they have fungus on them?
You know what? It might actually. It's been in the basement for like 6 years. So, but I will say, Blake. I mean, I had no issues getting it to work though. So,
I blame it on StreamYard at this point. After canceling my pro membership, I think they've just they've tagged my account, and so it's probably all on them. It's the only thing I could think of. Can't be user error.
Makes sense.
So,
Never user error.
Yeah.
hey, is it true that there is a discount code for Steelbox tonight?
Audio. Yep.
On the
audio.
for the you for real have a 10% discount code?
I mean, we can make one. Was I supposed to have a discount code?
That's a heck of an incentive right there to tune into the live stream.
Yeah. That's
one way to do it.
Make that live right now. 10% off with discount code audio.
There you go. You heard it here. Hope you're paying attention in the chat. All 57 of you right now.
That was from Always Loves Whiskey came up with that idea. So
yeah. It's a smart idea. Well, you boys ready to get to it?
Let's do it.
All right. So I think we got pretty much all the pleasantries out of the way. We'll go ahead and get to it. Welcome, everybody. It is a Bourbon Community Roundtable number 79. We're glad everybody's back. We got the full roundtable here tonight to go and dive into some fun and new topics. But the whole team is here as well. Kenny, myself, Ryan, and Fred. Fellas, doing okay?
Doing great. It's a great day to be alive.
Mm-hmm. I'm a happy man right now. I got the positive vibes, seeing my good friends Ryan and Kenny up here, and Ryan's a master chicken farmer this week. So
that's right. I didn't even see he changed it.
I got 2 eggs, my first 2 eggs today, and so I'm really proud of all the 5 months I've been stroking these chickens and raising them in my basement, then moving them outside, and I thought they were defective for a few weeks because they hadn't laid any eggs, but now it's like I go out there and I was like, because I put these fake eggs out there to like stimulate them, and all they did was kick them out of their nest. And then I just thought they were the fake eggs down in the bottom, and it wasn't. It was a real one. And I was like, all right. And then my daughter dropped it and cracked it, and she started just like bawling. And I'm like, it's okay, they'll lay more. And there was one more in there, so it was fun.
That's awesome.
There's always gonna be one tomorrow.
That's right. Allegedly, they're supposed to lay one a day, so we'll see tomorrow.
All right. Well, now it just seems like your morning routine just got a little bit longer. You got to go and search for eggs every single morning now.
Yeah, I was just going in there every 2 or 3 to fill up their water. Now I gotta go every morning, get those damn eggs. But I'm excited that we cooked one up, scrambled it. It was tasty. I'm gonna make a New York sour. I was gonna make one tonight. I didn't realize we had a round table, and then I was like, damn, I guess I'll get on the round table.
They always catch up on us, don't they? I mean, they always they just like appear in the calendar.
I feel like I just did one, and then they just pop up. But I'm glad to be here. They're always fun.
If it makes you feel any better, I didn't really start planning out our topics until around maybe 5 o'clock today. I didn't really pay attention to the calendar. So yeah, it sneaks up on me too. But
I'm proud of you, Kenny.
The reason we're actually doing this about 2 weeks ahead of schedule is because next week is spring break for a lot of people. So it's kind of a good opportunity to get it out early, so we're not all actually doing this while on spring break.
No, Blake's on spring break every week, so he could.
That's true. Well, then quickly, let's go ahead and introduce the rest of the roundtable. So Blake, we already called you out, so you go ahead and chime in there when you're on.
He's on.
Good to be back. It's always fun to a little less time in between the last one and this one. So it's been fun. Looking forward to some good topics. I'm Blake from Sealbox. So thanks for having me.
And if you show up to these, you might actually get some 10% off coupons. That's just one of those things. It offsets your shipping and taxes sometimes. Who knows?
There you go.
And Eric.
Yeah, I'm Eric from Breaking Bourbon. Called up to the ranks again for the show. I think I'm going to start being added to the rotation, so I won't be able to say this over and over again, but glad to be here again.
They call him the lefty. Is that what it is from the outfield? Nice. And Brian.
All right, Brian with Sipping Corn, Bourbon Justice. Happy to be here as always. Like these topics, so we got one of the lawsuit topics, so that always gets me going, and it's interesting. So happy to be on, and happy to see Eric, and happy to hear about eggs. Happy to see all you guys.
Oh yeah, this was all just basically teed up for Brian. So I'm excited to kind of dig into this because we had talked about Sazerac side of the lawsuit on a previous roundtable, and now we get to kind of look at the other side of it. So fellas, just go ahead, take a break, take a moment, go pour yourself something, come right back, because I'm going to read this as a kind of a summary for people that haven't been paying attention to it. And so you can kind of understand exactly where RNDC is standing, what their arguments are, and then we'll start digging into some more of the questions around it as well. So now that RNDC has responded to Sazerac, here's a little bit of the background. So in January this year, Sazerac filed a high-profile lawsuit against RNDC, claiming around $38.6 million in unpaid invoices and unprofessional conduct by the company, citing tie-in sales of lucrative bourbon labels. Among other grievances against the distributor is Sazerac's claim that RNDC didn't effectively promote Sazerac products in retail stores. Sazerac and RNDC's relationship was so tightly intertwined that Sazerac allegedly controlled RNDC's product orders, introducing a supply system in 2021 that mandated minimum purchase requirements and automatic shipments to RNDC. So under the system, RNDC states that Sazerac ordered the product, sent it to the distributor, and then billed RNDC for the shipment. RNDC says that Sazerac began to set unattainable standards for RNDC that seemed designed to set up RNDC for failure, and that downplayed the distributor's successful ventures such as promotional campaigns. Under the new product shipment system, Sazerac repeatedly ordered excessive amounts of products, more than RNDC could reasonably sell, and failed to properly address concerns by RNDC per the filing. In September of 2021, an agreement between the two companies established RNDC's gross profit to $8.50 per case, and that's regardless of any product contained inside. To recoup those losses in profit, Sazerac stated that the company would take on RNDC's marketing and promotional responsibilities in-house, and RNDC alleges that Sazerac intended to launch a campaign to circumvent the three-tier distribution system. Throughout last December, Sazerac continued to order product on RNDC's behalf, leaving the distributor with an excessive $123 million in inventory, with no indication that RNDC would soon no longer be Sazerac's primary distributor across the country. And with that, RNDC couldn't then sell to any other wholesalers, and Sazerac also refused to accept returns of any product. So now that we have a little bit of color on the two sides, we start digging into this. And I guess the first thing is I kind of want your first opinions, but does Sazerac come off a little bit like a bully in this? Now that you've kind of seen what Sazerac had said, and they had said that they wanted to kind of create some more stuff in-house, that they weren't actually help promoting their product. But now it looks like RNDC and what they're saying, it's like, well, Sazerac just has all this capability to order as much product as they want, and they just stuck them with $123 million in inventory without the ability to go and resell it or to take it back. So kind of get some initial thoughts from you all.
Yeah, I mean, you're reading through the whole thing. It's first thing that sticks out is just, it seems crazy that these billion-dollar companies didn't have operating agreements or some type of more formalized distribution agreement. It's all kind of based off of emails and phone calls and referencing, communications like that. But and granted, you're reading it from RNDC's perspective, but it definitely felt like it was planned out ahead of time, the way everything played out, with Sazerac kind of making their moves on the back end and telling them one thing. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's illegal. Like, it sounded to me like what they did maybe wasn't the best in a partnership relationship, but at the end of the day, they did what was best for Sazerac. It didn't come across as like a legal thing that they had breached, more of just like, hey, we wish you wouldn't have done this to us, but now we've got all this inventory. But it just is completely bizarre and crazy to me that it was not a much more formalized process and allowed for Sazerac to basically make RNDC or order on behalf of RNDC and pay themselves on behalf of RNDC essentially automatically. Like, I can't imagine any other business working like that except for in this crazy 3-tier model.
Yeah, it's true. And to also say to your earlier point, I know I've read in a few articles that they had explicitly said that they did not want any contracts, that anything that was going to be through communication was all basically just done through emails. And I guess it's kind of an old school system of just handshakes, and that's kind of what they wanted it to be. So there was never any formal agreements or contracts that were ever stipulated for something, which you're right, which does sound a little crazy, but knowing what we do on a product and distributor side, we don't have agreements and contracts with a lot of ours as well. That's something that's not necessarily, I guess you'd say, industry standard all the time, but that's because there might be, and well, by the way, that's because we're small peanuts, but there's probably bigger companies out there that have different things. They've got sales numbers and goals and all this other kind of things that they want to hit that they put inside contracts. So it's kind of on an as is or as needed basis.
Yeah. So when you say like they um who acted like they didn't want an official agreement, Sazerac or RNDC?
Sazerac did not want an official agreement.
Well, sure,
and that's over their 10 years of doing business together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. This is a fascinating one. I wish they would like, I think we talked about in This Week in Bourbon, but how I wish they would do like a C-SPAN or where we can watch in on like a trial, which we'll probably never get to trial, but it's like an OJ trial that I just want to watch more of and see what really unfolds. But I don't know that I'll ever get to that point. I'm really interested to hear, Brian and Fred's and Eric's perspective on this, because I have thoughts, but they're emotional thoughts, and that gets me in trouble. So I'd rather let other people talk.
Brian, right, I'm really waiting for you to talk.
Okay.
I just
I'm
want to
waiting.
hear you.
I was going to say,
I was waiting for you.
We're all just waiting for Brian to jump in.
I want to hear the lawyer.
No offense, Eric, but yeah.
No, so one of the biggest things that struck me on this when it first came out that Sazerac had sued was everyone was interested in it, as far as media was interested in a lawsuit finally, but they weren't, not all of them, but most of them weren't saying the magic words of, hey, this is just one side of the lawsuit. And I kept trying to tell everybody, wait for RNDC's response here, because they get a chance to answer, and they're probably going to file their own counterclaim on this. And there's been some media coverage, but not nearly as much as the huge splash that Sazerac made. So I think that's maybe neither here nor there, but it's a lesson in, a race to the courthouse and being able to control the narrative. And Sazerac always does a fantastic job of controlling the narrative, among other things. But so that's one thing. And then the system, as you described it, Kenny, where Sazerac not only places the order, but they automatically withdraw the money, and they ship a bunch of things that maybe RNDC doesn't want or doesn't even know it was getting. It's based on, who knows whose projection. That's just wild to me that two businesses operate like that. But the biggest part that struck me on this is RNDC's allegations that implicate 3-tier violations and tied house violations. And if this case goes in that direction, it's bad news for both of them. And I really think that they'll exchange some initial blows here, but this has got to be a case that they try to resolve outside of the public record. They already have a confidentiality order in place, so both parties are probably going to try to keep things out of the public record. And I'm hoping the Courier Journal or WDRB or somebody gets in there and fights that, because courts are supposed to be open. The only things that you're really supposed to keep out of the public record are things that are truly trade secrets or have some kind of trade secret type value. And there's not going to be a whole lot of that here. It's going to be business deals, and they'll claim that it should be confidential because competitors shouldn't know what kind of deals each of them had. But that's the heart of the case, and the public's going to be entitled to know this. And I'm like Blake, I want to watch more of this, and I'm going to be monitoring the filings from both parties and try to give it to you guys, and maybe we'll talk about it at another roundtable or just periodically update people, because I think, unfortunately, because litigation can take so long, we'll have long periods of lulls where no one knows what's going on. Then pretty soon we forget about it, and then there's the next case that we're paying attention to, and we lose track of this. This is an important case to watch because of this attack on the 3-tier system and allegations of tied house violations.
Can you go into a little bit deeper, like what that means about tied house violations to maybe somebody like me who doesn't necessarily understand it all?
Well, so part of the 3-tier system that goes back to the post-prohibition compromise on how to handle alcohol sales is that you're, as a producer, you are not supposed to be giving material incentives to the retail level. You're supposed to be totally separate. You can't have co-ownership across tiers, and you're not supposed to basically give incentives. And that all goes back to pre-prohibition, where bars were tied to a particular brand. And here the allegation is that Sazerac, by creating all of these positions where they are the marketers, the allegation is that's the distributor's job and that's the retailer's job. That's not the producer's job. And there's tall walls between each of those, and you can't cross them, is essentially the allegation. And RNDC is saying they weren't letting us do our job, and they were trying to do a job they weren't supposed to do.
So how would you, because a lot of the claim is that they're going to launch a campaign to circumvent the 3-tier distribution system. Like, is there any more information on like what that campaign was or what they planned or tried to do?
Now that's stuff that hasn't come out yet, but that's the sort of thing that I'll be watching for, and that'll come out in depositions and documents. And the way litigation works, we're not going to see all the documents that get provided by either side unless they file them with some sort of motion or some sort of response. So there's a lot that we're just not going to know about this case, and you have to try to connect the dots even when you look at everything that gets filed in the case.
So Brian, if I'm to take a
referencing-
look at some of the stuff that I know has been going on, stuff that I've reported on and my YouTube channel and here, one of the things that's pretty well known in the local market out here is that representatives of not just Sazerac but other distilleries would tell bars and retailers what they would tell them what they're going to get and dictate to them. It would be like an actual official from the distillery versus a distributor. Could that be something that would be perceived as against the 3-tier system?
Yeah, I think it could definitely be, and it just depends on how much they're doing. How, are they really dictating it? Are they giving any sort of? I mean, kickbacks is a loaded word, so don't read too much into that. But are they getting kickbacks for product placement or promotions or those sorts of things? And if that's coming from the producer side, it's a potential problem for them. That ought to be reserved for the wholesale and then the retailer level.
But so this is where like I see the, I read the RNDC stuff and, we're talking about it, but a lot of it, I kind of look at it as like, you all wouldn't be saying any of this if Sazerac didn't pool. You wouldn't be saying anything, and so now they're like crying foul in a lot of ways. And I understand that's how lawsuits go. It's a back and forth, and you realize you're going to give up ground and expose some things. But a lot of it to me is, I don't know. It's bad for both sides, but I don't think RNDC came out looking very good with what they put out.
It's I think both of them are going to get mud on them or blood on them or whatever you want to say. And it's important to note too that Sazerac gets an opportunity to respond to RNDC's allegations, and we don't know what those responses are yet. Just like I was telling everybody, you got to wait to see what RNDC says. Sazerac gets the same opportunity, and maybe they'll file a motion to dismiss. They'll at the very least file what's called an answer, which responds to each and every point in that really long filing that RNDC made.
Now, Kenny, I've talked to some distributors that have taken on these the former RNDC spots. I've talked to several of them, and they're like, a lot of them are like beer people, and the kind of going theory is that Sazerac made a move to get in deeper into where the wells are. If you go to a lot of bars, the beer world owns the bar, and there's just maybe one or two bourbons. This wouldn't be places that we would normally go. But one of the big theories is that they were trying to get into like a deeper, advance in the alcohol world beyond spirits, and they're kind of like quest to take over as they kind of move into a completely different world. But these are distributors that are not necessarily suited for selling spirits. They're beer people, so they're all hiring and they're like reaching out to consultants to like try to educate their staffs on what these products are. And you're already hearing from people in the market, like they're coming in, getting pitches. Whiskey bars are getting pitches, putting E.H. Taylor on the table. Like, hey, do you know what this is? Like, just imagine walking in, not saying this has happened here or there, but imagine walking into Jack Rose and saying, here's E.H. Taylor. Do you know what that is? Not saying it happened there, but like it's that equivalent. It's like those high level whiskey bars are getting approached as if they don't know the whiskey.
So, I mean, I guess that was another question I was going to ask you. If you've been talking to these other distributors, have they just been, just overloaded with having to bring on all the SKUs and having this massive switch? Because this is not like bringing on just one company with a few SKUs. I mean, this is bringing on a massive, massive animal that you've got to sit there and figure out.
I think it's overwhelming excitement from these other distributors. Like they are ecstatic, and they are trying to get ahead of the curve. They're trying to get their people educated. And they just don't necessarily, they have relationships in the market, but they may not have the same relationships as before. And you talk to some of the whiskey bars, like talk to a whiskey bar, talk to a retailer about how it's kind of gone. Cause it's been different. And I think it's been more than anything, it's been awkward because, one rep doesn't know as much as another rep. And, usually if you were an RNDC and you got honored with the Buffalo Trace portfolio, most of those people knew it inside out. Like they had to, do whatever they had to do to sell a particular bottle, but they were usually pretty educated on the products.
Yeah. Yep. Blake, I know you wanted to chime in a little bit ago and say something. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, it was an amazing point. I don't remember what it was right now, but no, I think it was what was Brian talking about? Oh, yeah. So they kind of did allude to what the I guess they would call that the tide law issue was, but and it did seem like Sazerac basically told RNDC that, hey, we'll go out and hire our own sales department, and we had talked about it a little bit after that, of just basically the Sazerac sales team would go take orders, do everything, and at that point RNDC is just kind of like a logistics company, which seems kind of how Sazerac was trying to move it. But that I think that's the ultimate question: is does that become a tide law question or compliance issue? But yeah, I'm sure they have plenty of attorneys. But yeah, I think that was a little bit what's alluded to in the RNDC's countersuit, was the fact that they did create this whole division or sales team or whatever you want to call it that would act as the RNDC reps essentially.
I mean, and I guess that's a good question to pose to you all too, is that if they were going to go and they were going to create this massive sales force that's going to go out there, and even to the point of taking orders, now they don't necessarily, I mean, if this whole system was there that they could go ahead and actually submit the orders, that's a whole other thing. But I would imagine they go and they take the orders and they submit them to RNDC, and then RNDC is still a part of the logistics part of it. Is there something wrong with that? Like, I'm not too sure. Like, I don't see what's wrong with doing something like that, because we've been able to experience what it's like as somebody that has a bourbon brand. We care about our 4 SKUs. We want that is our top focus. That is all we think about day in, day out. Blake, I'm going to use you as an example because you're a retailer. You've got 100 SKUs or 500 SKUs or whatever it is, right? So you have to you're not even giving a fair share to whatever, right? Most people are like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a lot of my eggs in the baskets of what I know the top sellers are going to be. If we can grow that, then we grow even more. So you get lost in that relationship, and you get lost in that discussion when you're talking to a wholesaler that has 600 or 6,000 SKUs. And so I don't understand why why you couldn't do something like that.
So this may be something as simple as hiring a firm versus having them work with a Sazerac.com email. A long time ago, I think before you all got in the business, Diageo had a group called Masters of Whiskey, and they handled all of Diageo's whiskey portfolio, and they were really, really great educators. And they were actually a part of a firm. Like, they did not belong to Diageo proper, and the Diageo proper people never really went out into the market and did anything. They made decisions behind the office. So I don't know. It may be that simple. And we know there's been rapid turnover, for those listening or watching, behind the scenes at Sazerac has been, the last 6 months has been insane. They have lost pretty much 12 people I can think of that moved on for their own reasons, or we're kind of like, hey, you're going to go away now. But there's just, the changeover there is enormous right now. So I don't know. It could be that simple.
I think the problem is I think it's okay to have a brand rep go to a store, educate, store owners or bars on the product. I think the problem that's being communicated here is what we all thought that was going on, was that Sazerac reps were probably going in, or allegedly going in and saying, hey, if you want Pappy or you want Weller or Blanton's or whatever, you need to bring on all our other SKUs here, and I think that's where the line got blurry. And it was probably going on with RNDC too, but they're probably like telling on themselves. But I don't know.
Well,
maybe that's where I'm just trying to figure it out.
So
I'm not saying that's happening.
I think it's flipped, right? I don't know if there's something that says, if you want Pappy Well or Blanton's, you got to take on Wheatley Vodka and Fireball and stuff like that. If it's all within inside the same brand or the same thing, I don't think there's a. I don't know what the legality is, but there's got to be something that it says like, yes, you buy so much of whatever, that's okay, but you're in that same brand family or the same whatever, the same damn company. I think the problem that Sazerac claimed is saying, well, if you want to get Blanton's, well, you've also got to go and get this other vodka made by some Minnesota distillery that we have, right? And so you do all these package and tie-in deals with your whole entire.
You mean
inventory.
RNDC was doing that?
Well, I think that's what Sazerac's original claim was. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But now I think RNDC is claiming Sazerac was doing that too with their reps.
That I'm
Well,
not-
I mean,
It's like they're both telling on each other for the same damn thing.
And that's exactly why they got to chill. Yeah.
and it's been happening in the game for a long time. But the crazy, this is the beautiful irony of all of this. A lot of these distributor, a lot of these strict distributor laws and how you can't control pricing with retailers and bars are on the books because of the actual Pappy Van Winkle and the price fixing investigations in the 1940s and 50s. Pappy was so big in making sure that the large distillers like National, Seagram's, Brown Forman, and Shinley couldn't like get in a meeting room together and say, you know what, this independent distiller over here in Stitzel-Weller is trying to sell their whiskey for $5 a pint. Let's all agree to sell at $2.50, so we undercut him in the market and hurt his stocks so we can go in and bid on that, because that was happening and all these little distillers were getting bought up during World War II, and Pappy Van Winkle came up and like protected him. I bet you Pappy actually, if he knew how his name and likeness was used in the sale of other products, I bet you he'd be rolling in his grave, because that's what kills me about that brand is like no one ever really thinks about like how great Pappy was to bourbon. They just think of like the product itself,
Sure.
Yeah, and there's another point that was kind of brought up earlier, and I was just kind of racking my brain thinking about it as well, is this idea that, oh, well, if a Sazerac sales rep goes in there and they give kickbacks or they give whatever, well, they're not allowed to do that. That has to come from the wholesaler or something like that. Was that pretty much what I came to understand?
Because
Yeah, a producer can't go. I mean, kickbacks again is a loaded word. There's incentives is maybe the better word, but a producer can't go in and give incentives to a particular retailer. I mean, there's even restrictions on what producers can do on social media for particular retailers.
Yeah.
So my question is that my question is getting to.
Whoa,
To a retailer.
Did we lose Kenny?
Kenny, you broke up for a second.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, Kenny, your audio is kind of bad.
Well,
so
I
if you could
actually
just drop off real quick and come back.
Never bounce.
Hey, Ryan, what's our protocol there if we lose Kenny?
I don't know.
What do we?
Is there a
What do we
Google
do?
Doc somewhere?
There should be a process button around here somewhere. Yeah.
Ryan
By the way,
My
becomes
thing is, I just
master
assumed it was me,
podcaster.
and then I saw everybody else's face still moving. I'm like, hold on, I'm not the one frozen. This is new territory.
All right, here, I'll pick this back up here. So my question is can a wholesaler give an incentive to a retailer? Is that legal? I know it. No? Okay.
Yeah,
they
they
thought
can
you
give
were
it
doing-
to, but
well,
they can
still,
give you a
it's a-
distributor, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. Can a distributor give an
that's what I'm
incentive to a retailer?
You said a wholesaler.
Same
Give it-
thing.
Well,
yeah.
Oh,
no, it's
sorry.
not.
Not a producer. Sorry.
Yeah.
The distributor, can they give an incentive to a store?
I don't know, Brian.
I think it depends on how that's coming. So we ran into this, but it was more the producer to retailer. Like a producer can give, a poster or floor displays, but like we couldn't have somebody pay us to do advertising or whatever it may be. And I'm like 85 to 90% sure that includes the wholesaler as well. Now, maybe they could give you some discounts and credits on bulk and that type of thing, but I'm pretty sure you can't just say, okay, distributor to the retailer, if you sell X, we'll give you Y. I'm pretty sure that's still off limits.
It's definitely going to be state by state. Like when I do my blind bourbon series, now a registered trademark, across the country, sometimes the bar or the music venue will reach out to the distributor to get them to pay for something, or like the marketing or something. And in some markets like Pennsylvania, can't do jack shit. So it's different everywhere. I know this. Been in the game for a while, and I know why every major distillery owns a back bar in Las Vegas. The beverage directors are not putting them there out of the kindness of their heart or because they love those products. There is going to be some coin drop somewhere in someone's bank account. Vegas is going to be like very different than the rest of the world.
Or tickets to a show in Vegas that you just couldn't get your hands on. Maybe that's what it was.
By God. By the way, we haven't heard from Eric this entire time. I feel like,
unmute yourself, Eric.
Come on,
Speak
get
up.
in.
All right.
Get in the
Yeah.
game, Eric.
I don't know what this whole topic. I'm just kind of like, it's a he said, she said. So, from my little point of view, it's just, what do I know? This whole court case could have a lot of ramifications, I think, for drinkers and stores and distributors and producers. But, we'll see how much comes out, kind of like what Brian was saying. It's what little information we can piece together and what comes of that if we don't even know the outcome, or if it just everyone gets paid off or, settles and that sort of thing. But if the whole thing was kind of based on these old-fashioned handshake deals, should we feel bad for any of these companies that kind of got taken advantage of? Because it seemed like this was bound to happen at some point. It's crazy that business is being done like that, but I'm sure a lot of businesses being done like this in many different businesses, so maybe this will help change just regarding whiskey and bourbon, that sort of thing. Maybe we'll see less of this because all of a sudden there's, depending on how much who has to pay who and settles and that sort of thing, maybe some real change will come of this and we'll see less of this.
Yeah, that you kind of took a question out of what I was going to think is like, what could be the long-term turnout, of this? Like, what could we see happen? I would love to be able to see that we could see just a little bit of change happening in the 3-tier system. I know I had mentioned last week on This Week in Bourbon, there's a new website called, what was it, Fermenting Change, that came out that basically goes and centralizes all of the points that wholesalers bring up about why we still need the 3-tier system. So maybe we can see something that will, hell, take it to the Supreme Court and let's see if it'll change something. Run it across the board, across the states.
Hey, let's do it. They get the Jack Daniels case in there. Why not, right?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
I know Brian's all over that one too.
I listened to that entire argument this week, so it's fascinating. So maybe that's a future topic.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. I think this just proves that this old model can't keep up with modern times, and it hasn't for a long time. And it needs to be, it doesn't need to be abolished. I think there's a place for it. It's just like we need to look at it closely, and how can we make sense of it moving forward and make it a win-win for both parties? Because right now it's kind of this I always say fuckery and shenanigans, but that's what it is right now. It's this wild west of things going on. So
I know it's as simple as saying the 3-tier system, it's 3-tier system's fault and everything, but I mean, if we had about a dozen states that would get on board and have like a 3-tier system centric shipping method that checks IDs, everybody would be happy. But you have so much pressure on these distillers to feel like they have to fight for the last drop of whatever's going on there, where I think the distributors, the wholesale, I think they're fighting the wrong people. I mean, to me, they should be going to the state of Michigan. They should be going to Texas, and they should be having conversations with these attorney generals here, saying like, look, we can find a way where your state tax gets paid. It goes through a distributor. There's so many ways that they could improve the 3-tier system and make it safe for everybody involved. I mean, right now it's because the distillers are fighting for their piece of pie. They're fighting for their piece of pie at every single turn, whether it's the barrel taxes or it's cutting out the middleman. They are aggressive. I mean, right now you have the largest lobbies, talking about direct to consumer shipping. That's cutting out retailers, and it's cutting out the wholesalers. But the distillers, man, they're being smart about all of this. They're being very smart about this.
I don't understand like why that's such a big deal. It's like you go make a trinket, you go sew something together. You shouldn't be mandated to say you have to go and sell it to X or Y to be able to get it to the hands of the consumer.
Well,
like why not
a trinket,
sell it directly?
You can't die by drinking a trinket. There was not 13 years of banned trinket making. This is being a regulated substance that is every day being told that is worse and worse for us. I mean, it's going to be regulated. It's got to have someone in government making sure, because just the other day we had a DUI in my neighborhood, and it was an idiot guy, and somebody served him somewhere, and so people are asking like, where did this guy get served? And so whether or not it's whoever's pouring it, whoever's making it, whoever's drinking it, you're all impacted by what it is. And it is a substance that will intoxicate you. And if you don't, know how to drink responsibly, you fuck everything up for all of us. So,
all right, fair enough.
Yeah,
I'll save my trinket response for another one.
It's such a complex animal and beast. Like, it's hard to. I mean, you see how, even just like Sazerac with Republic losing them, they've had to lay off tons of workforce, and producers who use RNDC thought that it was going to be beneficial to them that they lost Sazerac because they thought, hey, we'll maybe get more attention, but they had to lay off staff, and that's jobs lost, and we really don't want that in the industry. And so it's just, there's a lot of livelihoods at stake here too. It's such a complex thing, and it's I don't know what the answer is, but there's definitely got to be some kind of reform. It's I kind of like the idea of distributors being more of that kind of like logistical side of things. That way it's like I don't know, making less margin, then the brands can use that money to have the sales force or go out and do that. Because right now it's kind of like, you're as a producer, not just us, but producers in general are paying a lot of money to these distributors that isn't necessarily getting utilized, properly for the brand, each specific brand. So it's like, I think that might be a good hybrid model where the distributor is like a more of a logistical company in some sense, and then the brands can help be the ones out promoting and selling it for themselves. So,
well, we'll see what happens in the future, but let's go ahead and move on to the next topic before we start running out of time here real quick. And this is looking at kind of the influx of what we've seen with counterfeits lately. So last month, Acker Wines, they agreed to pay a maximum fine of $100,000 for selling fraudulent E.H. Taylor 4 grains through their bottle shop. And that was exposed on Inside Edition last year. And when Sazerac commented about Justin's House of Bourbon, they claimed that there was a big Blanton's counterfeit ring happening in the Netherlands. And it feels like Adam Hers is always breaking more news every week of new counterfeits in the black market, with the most recent one being someone from Ohio that was doing label swaps. So, of course, I feel that we are seeing counterfeits on the rise because of the growing sheer number of bourbon drinkers out there. Hell, I think we all see it on our Facebook and Instagram comments of, "Oh, I've got a bottle on my shelf. It's within reach. DM me for shipping details." Like that happens 4,000 times a day. But my question to you all is like, when do we think distilleries are going to start stepping up and putting some sort of counterfeit tampering measurements for some of their most desirable bottles?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit overdue at this point. You know, it's something that's fairly commonplace in the wine world. And from what you can tell, it's not like it's some great step. So I'm pretty shocked it hasn't been done yet. And a little more of a massively embraced thing. But what's crazy is you see some of these counterfeits now, and it's not just like Pappy and some of the big name bottles. I mean, they're counterfeiting just random Four Roses single barrels because hey, if you can refill it for 200, $300 and you know, it's easy to do, you know, why not? I guess it always comes down to like what responsibility of the distillery is it to keep consumers safe? You know, while we talked about the 3-tier system before this, you know, the distillery is selling to a distributor, who's selling to a retailer, who's selling to a customer, who then is going out and selling on the secondary in a gray or black market. You know, they're like 4 steps removed. So are they responsible? I don't know. I think until at least on the whiskey side, it's embraced a little more for secondary and more like investment buying. I don't think we'll see any of the distilleries embrace it. But you know, on the wine side and the Scotch side, that's been part of the industry for quite some time, whether people like it or not as consumers. So that's something that the whole American whiskey producers embrace and get on with. I don't think we'll see anybody jump on to tamper strips or anything like that anytime soon.
You know, what's interesting about this is the industries that really prepare themselves for the counterfeit market are those who are aggressive in China. You know, China is obviously, I mean, China is a really, you know, that's their culture, is to counterfeit stuff there. But cognac has got a lot of measures to prevent that. Scotch has it. Blake mentioned Scotch and wine, but they're active in China, and bourbon's just not there. And whatever we think that the counterfeit problem is here, it's very mild in comparison to China. And frankly, people want to give this industry more credit when it comes to these things. You know, we just revealed on this show that you had 2 multi-billion-dollar companies doing major business on handshake agreements. I mean, for God's sakes, I have you know, I have agreements for just about everything, and it's like you're telling me we're making, you know. So I think that's one of those where they don't think of it as actively as they possibly should. And they should have been thinking about this 15 years ago. Pappygate happened in 2013, and there's been enormous amount of you know, counterfeit stories since then. You know, and everybody wants to blame it on the like, well, who's buying it and where's it coming from? And oh, you should be buying from secondary. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of truth that the 80-90% of the blame should be on the distillers for not making better bottles and making it so easy. Like they could put out a Facebook post tomorrow, says, this is how you know. I'm grabbing my wife's whatever this is here. She's like, you know, this is how you know
That would be
it's
nail
ours.
polish, right?
I don't. This is fruit fetish.
Lip gloss.
Oh, it's lip gloss.
Jacqueline.
Okay.
Well, it's called fruit fetish. I'm like, oh, what's going on, baby? What's going on?
Call me a banana today. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, they could say like, this is how you know it's ours. This is what the fakes look like. The fakes don't have this because once you open this, you know, it breaks or whatever. I don't know. I'm not an engineer in that world, or any world, but they could have prevented this a long time ago. But what do they do? They put wax on it. You know, they use very, very, simple bottles or simple stamps or simple foils or labels. You know, come on.
Well, I mean, it is a cost saving measure, right? I mean, everything has to go down to that. And I'm probably mostly thinking towards LTOs, but even that showed that that's really not even the case, especially with this Ohio label swapper that was buying just Weller foolproof on eBay and then taking those labels and putting on already other sealed bottles and making a premium off of it. And dang it, I didn't really think of it as Blake had said earlier that why should this be the distillery's problem? Like they're already selling it through the system that it needs to, and this is a you know, your mileage may vary. Buyers, buyer beware at your own risk. You're buying on a secondary black market, so it's kind of is it? I mean, I don't know. I kind of look at it now. I'm like, okay, maybe it is the person who's buying its fault until you get to the point, as Fred had mentioned earlier, is like you get distillers that come out and just throw up auctions for scotch bottles that are 50 years old that sell for $50,000. Those aren't getting opened. But the reason
Whoa,
is,
whoa, 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 whoa. 50-year-old scotch is going way more than
okay, I'm just tossing
minimum
numbers out here.
$250,000.
All right.
Well, there is a 51-year-old scotch should go for 50, but
All right.
all right.
Well,
Sorry.
I'm just saying they're putting they're putting counterfeit measures into those because of the nature of what they are. They are collectible. They're going directly to that. I don't think that many people are thinking, "Oh yeah, we need to go ahead," because there's only maybe a handful of those bottles, but they're not going to go ahead and put counterfeit measures across the 58,000 bottles of Weller foolproof they're going to sell this year. Like that seems a little unreasonable.
Well, there's a lot there.
But they
This is one of the
could.
areas too that the NFT technology is apparently like a powerful tool. And if you have the bottle, you have the NFT, you can prove its authenticity. It's what some people are doing in the collector world. There's been talks of chips. There's been talks of all kinds of stuff. But I just I don't know. I do think this is more of a preventable distiller problem than it is on consumers. Consumers, we're always going to be had. Marvin Shanken bought, a ridiculously expensive counterfeit bottle of wine that ended up being in a book called Billionaire's Vinegar. It happens. It's embarrassing, but it happens.
So to say something dumb, why isn't it the distributor's problem? They're
That's
the
what they
ones
claim,
dealing
right?
with,
Yeah.
right. I mean, let the distributor deal with this and put anti-counterfeit measures on it.
But they can't.
Stupid
They wouldn't
three-tier
be able
system
to
doesn't
touch
let the producer deal
bottle,
with
right?
the consumer. What's that? Sorry.
I was going to say the distributor wouldn't be able to add anything to the bottle, correct? That, even if they wanted to.
You can in some markets, like North Carolina, they have to put a certain tag on it. So that could they can't alter it from they can't pour it into another container, but there are some provisions out there that require them to do that. There's also North Carolina, and I think maybe South Carolina requires them to break the bottles afterward or rip the label off. So that's another thing that states could do is put that law on the books, but it'd be fought because it's extra work. But to that point, Brian, that's a domestic. That's a domestic strategy. There's the thing that Sazerac brought up that Kenny mentioned earlier is that there's a lot of stuff coming from the Netherlands, and that stuff sneaks into the distributors because, you believe it or not, distributors actually will buy from individuals, and in some states they're allowed to. So if an individual has a couple cases of Blanton's from the Netherlands, hey, look what I got. It could find itself in the system. It happens. And I don't know. I think that a better bottle could prevent it.
But too, I think no matter what you're going to do, somebody's going to find a way to circumvent that and counterfeit that safe piece, to make it, whatever, more authentic. I don't know. It's Kenny, should we invest in ours? I don't know. I feel like ours are going to be really valuable one day.
Maybe.
I did feel like I made it one time. I was reading through Instagram and somebody said like they loved our sherry finish and they were like, DM me. I got a few bottles. I was like, all right, we made it. Somebody's trying to sell some counterfeits of ours. That's a bad way to put it, but anyways.
That's when you know you made it.
Yeah.
No, I like it. And then, Brian, you said to put it on the distributor. I think that the thing that becomes tough with all this is that how many different systems would get put in place of how you find anti-counterfeit measurements. And it's just like, okay, it's like this distributor does this one does this one, this one does this one. And so now you've got a bunch of people to deal with. And I doubt there is going to be one uniform way that anybody would, like, the whole industry would get behind, because that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of
there couldn't
capitalism.
possibly be. Yeah, it was a that's why I started by saying this is a dumb thing to say. But the 3-tier system says it's that level that is supposed to have interaction with the retail level. So that's where the problem is. But
like it.
Yeah, you're absolutely 100% right.
Yep, for sure.
I do think it's going to happen, though. I think bourbon companies they tend to be a little slow to react to things, but once they start getting hit financially with, I think it comes down to trust with the consumer, and if normal day people are, lose trust on a bottle or in a company's bottle, if they believe it's real or not. One thing is from a store, from an individual, it's a little different, but if they're buying bottles and let's say, heaven forbid, somebody dies drinking this bottle that who knows what's in it, if that makes the national news that somebody died drinking X brand, that's something's going to push them a little bit. And and until that time, it's going to be slow and it's going to cost extra money. But, counterfeiting is rampant in any industry, every industry right now. It's really out of control. And it's a little like Fred was saying, it's slower with bourbon, but it's eventually going to catch up to it. And they're going to, like like concert tickets and stuff like that. If Ticketmaster didn't have some way to prevent counterfeits or try to prevent counterfeits, they're just going to lose their shorts. And, at some point it might catch up to bourbon. They're going to have to act.
Eric, you brought up a great point that I actually haven't even thought about. But domestic, we don't face this, but internationally, there are a lot of people who die from fake alcohol. And back in the early 1900s, not to say that we're in that time frame, but they used to fake bourbon all the time, and with sulfuric acid. Now, back then, their stomachs were a little stronger and they could, drink some sulfuric acid. But you would go to the store, or you wouldn't be a store per se, but you could actually buy a bottle of blackstrap molasses that had been mixed with sulfuric acid and colored with caramel coloring and labeled bourbon and drink it. That was out there. Horrible headache, by the way. But that's that. If that happens with the bourbon label, holy shit, that would be horrible.
Yeah. And you see that in Mark Brown's newsletters, probably several times a month that happens. And a lot of it's in India where it's happening. So, and I think it's like, with bourbon and these big brands, especially the ones that have the bottles that, they're, the hard part about it is like everything is planned so far in advance, and it's so hard to like pivot and change to like modern times, like, because everything's been bought and planned years ago. And so it's it's hard for these companies to switch and pivot, but I think they'll probably get on board and move towards more safeguards, especially with the rare and limited stuff. But I don't know, maybe they don't give a shit. I don't know. They're
I mean, I would just love to see eBay take some sort of stance into this. I mean, that's where everything starts coming up and really bubbling out, is because they can trace everything from eBay sales. Now, maybe that's a good tool because maybe the sales are gonna happen anyway, but they can use that as a tracking measure. But if people are paying $150 for an empty bottle on eBay, like they have to know that that's what it's going to. They have to know that they are contributing to this problem. Maybe they do or don't know that, but I wish that somebody at eBay would probably look at this and go, "Yeah, we're contributing to counterfeit measures. We should probably do something about this." I would think that that would be something valuable to do.
Yeah, how much can Adam catch? I mean, it's I love that the new stuff that came out in Dayton or Cincinnati, wherever it was. I mean, the guy's looking at like little marks on labels to match it up. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
The screenwriter of American Pie, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah.
I mean,
Who would have thought?
I can't get it's an amazing story, actually.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Unless there's any kind of closing thoughts there. All right, didn't think so. Well, we'll save our final and third topic for the next one, but I'm glad everybody can get together for this pre-spring break one. Even though if you're listening to this, we're actually on spring break. We're vacationing or doing something. I don't know. We're just not worried about bourbon at this present moment. Who knows? But
Actually, you're probably listening to this on Thursday? So
Thursday.
if you're on Thursday, I'll be at Justin's House of Bourbon Friday in Lexington handing out some, I don't know, doing something legal. I don't know.
Totally legal. 100% legal.
I'll just be there. Come find out.
Yeah, just be there. I'll be there.
Thanks for that great setup to the event.
I don't know. It's terrible. It's Sunday. It's crap. It's actually Friday. I don't. What day is it? This is Thursday. All right, I'll see you there. Come to Lexington, Justin's House of Bourbon. I'll see you there.
There you go. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, you heard from us already, but I'll let the guys here on the bottom row give their little outro. So, Blake, go ahead and go first.
Yeah, always a fun one. Really enjoyed it. Some more like solemn topics today. I felt like we had to really dig into our educational backgrounds to think about these, but it was a really great show. So thanks for having me. I'm Blake from Sealbox, and looking forward to the next one.
For sure, Eric.
Yeah, Eric from Breaking Bourbon. Happy to be back again on the show. And in case you didn't know who we were, we do bourbon-based reviews, articles, and stuff every day of the week. Check us out.
And as a producer, we pay them very heavily for all their favorable reviews of everything for Pursuit. So it's great. Right?
Shh, don't say that.
Just kidding. Actually, it's not the retailer, right? That's all legal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's all fine. It's just a reviewer.
Yeah.
Actually,
Hold
it's
on, y'all
not
are getting
legal.
kickbacks?
It's FTC problems.
That's
but
yeah.
That's
not-
an FT.
yeah.
That's a Federal Trade Commission violation.
All right,
it's
never
FTC.
mind.
It's not.
I take it all back. That's just a joke, everybody.
There's always rules. So there's rules everywhere for everyone.
Yeah. And Brian, lead us off here.
All right, Brian with Sip and Corn, Bourbon Justice. Find me at both of those on all the socials. This has been a fun one. Can't wait to talk sometime about these squeaky dog toys, because that was a really fun case to listen to, which maybe just shows how big of a dork I am. But always glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
For sure. We'll definitely talk about squeaky dog toys, or maybe we'll just have you on the show at some point just to give an overview and the legal ramifications of what this means for freedom of speech.
Let's do it.
America.
Yeah. Yes.
America.
But with that, everybody, cheers, and we'll see you next week.
Toodles.
Vodka
Cheers.
sucks.
All right. Way to go, everybody. I was not
nice
drinking
one. That was a
bourbon, by
good
the way.
one.
I know there's a thing over there. People were like, "Who's drinking?"
Yeah.
And
We got sparkling water.
I drank
Y'all
my
are
fair share
drinking?
last night.
Man.
Watching Ultra.
I had a mule earlier today too. I'm getting really big on my Kentucky mules right now, so I had one of those earlier.
The
It's
Kentucky
a warm day.
Crosswalk.
Time to get that out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you call them? Blake?
So,
Kentucky
yeah,
Crosswalk?
the
What
old-
kind of beer?
I'm
That's
gonna bring
ale
back the
though.
Kentucky
Yeah, that's
Crosswalk. I feel like that needs a little more attention. I feel like I was onto something there and it died out. And maybe this year's Bourbon and Beyond, I'll bring it back. Back to its
Nice.
original home. Yeah.
We'll save that for our
Um,
downtown location. We'll have that in the special menu.
Okay, we'll
So-
do. Yeah, actually, can I get that? That's my only request is have the Kentucky Crosswalk on menu at some point.
Oh, it'll definitely be on there.
What was it?
It'd be right next to the
Archtown
whiskey sour made with
Fusion
Cecil
Ale.
eggs.
Cecil eggs.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I mean, at some point you're
Not
gonna have so
Cecil's
many
chicken eggs,
eggs
just
that
Cecil
we
eggs.
just come to your house for omelets every morning.
Well, we eat about 18 a week and only have 3 chickens, so I only have like
Okay.
4
All right.
extra.
So that math
But-
doesn't work. All right.
That's why you get 5 chickens.
Well, I had 4.
Yeah.
So, well, we
What
won't
What
get
happened?
into it.
What happened? Did you eat it?
No, Hawk did.
Ooh.
I don't know. I had a leg problem, so we had to give him to the raptors. Not raptors, but raptor, whatever, predator birds. What am I talking about?
Oh my God. You're all over the place tonight.
Is Ryan having a stroke right now? First the Justin's House of Bourbon
Back to-
outro, and now
Back to
there's
the
raptors
Jurassic
in his
era.
backyard. There's
Well, my wife and I had childcare last night, and it was date night, and we
Oh.
can't handle freedom, so we sat at Valari Bar for 5 hours and watched
a little
basketball. and-
foggy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good time.
Well, that's kind of how I felt at breakfast the other night. I'm like, okay, I know we're having conversation and I'm eating, but Expo got me. The old the acid cats. They'll do you in if you're in Louisville.
Screw that drink. That's the worst. If
I
anyone's
still haven't
listening
been to
here,
Expo yet.
if anyone's here and
Oh, my
Blake
word.
tries to get you to drink this acid cap drink, just say no.
It's the best drink you'll ever have. It is amazing. I love screwing with people with it. It's you get, especially like people who use their palate for a living, because Ryan and Dan Calloway were both like, what is this? My mouth is still numb.
Oh, it ruined my palate for a week. So
But it came
I
back
didn't
like
pick
10 times stronger. So
yeah, that's right.
Cool.
All right,
right.
see you, Fred.
all right.
Got it,
All right,
Will.
Fred's out.
See y'all.
I'm gonna go ahead and we'll end the broadcast. And well, cheers everybody. Thanks for hanging in, watching this. And then, like I said, we'll see you here in probably about 5 or 6 weeks for the next one. So bye everybody on the
Okay.
chat.
All right.